Lily hit the ground before she even realized her legs had given out. Heat rolled across the prairie like a burning wave, pressing against her skin, swallowing the horizon in a shimmer of gold and pain. Her dress was torn at the hem and shoulder, and raw bruises dotted her arms and knees, a map of how far she had pushed herself. Every breath scraped like sandpaper. Her stomach twisted with hunger so sharp it felt like a blade turning inside her. She had not eaten in days. Water was the only thing she prayed for now, just one drink, anything to keep herself alive a little longer. When she lifted her head, vision blurring at the edges, she saw a man walking toward a well across the yard. A tall man. Broad-shouldered. Gray in his beard, sun in his eyes, and the slow, steady gait of someone who had lived his whole life beneath the open western sky. He walked like a man who knew the land, knew its dangers, and knew his own strength. Lily tried to stand but her body refused to obey. She slid back against the barn wall and pressed her palms to the splinters of the wooden boards. The world swayed. Spots danced in her eyes. The man stopped when he noticed her collapsed in the dirt. He did not shout, did not hurry in a panic, he simply approached with quiet caution, like someone who understood that desperate strangers could be skittish or scared. He knelt in front of her and offered a canteen. Lily grabbed it with trembling hands. The moment water touched her tongue, she nearly sobbed. The coolness slid down her throat like mercy itself. He let her drink for a few seconds, then gently pulled the canteen back so she would not choke. He asked her where she had come from. What had happened? His voice was low and steady, patient enough to let her breathe, gentle enough not to frighten her further. Lily tried to answer, but the words tangled in her throat. Everything she had been running from, men, hunger, shame, fear, crashed against her ribs all at once. Her eyes met his. This stranger. This rancher. A man who didn't bark orders or lunge at her or demand something in return. Something inside her didn't just crack, it broke open. For years, every scrap of kindness she'd received came with a price. Food for favors. Shelter for obedience. Smiles that turned into threats. From Abilene's dusty saloons to lonely trails where a gentle voice could turn into chains overnight. She had learned the hard way that the world demanded payment from women like her. So she said the one sentence no decent man ever expects to hear from a starving girl on the ground. "You're going to have sex with me." Her voice cracked, but the words were painfully clear, raw, desperate, and heavier than the heat around them. The rancher froze. Not with anger. Not with desire. With honest, stunned disbelief. Lily lowered her eyes. She whispered that she needed food. A place to stay. That she had nothing else to offer. Nothing anyone ever seemed to want except the one thing she hated trading most. The man stared at her for a long moment. Long enough for the prairie wind to shift through the tall grass. Long enough for Lily to wonder if she'd just ruined her last chance to stay alive. But instead of sending her away, or taking advantage of her hopelessness, he did the last thing she expected. He reached out a hand and helped her sit up straighter. No judgment. No sharp tone. Just a quiet steadiness that came from a man who understood the hardest parts of life because he'd lived through them. He told her to take another drink. She obeyed, slow and careful this time, though her hands still trembled. When she finally lowered the canteen, he spoke again. His voice rough but not unkind. He said he didn't want anything from her. Not the thing she feared. Not the thing she thought she had to trade. All he wanted to know was whether she could stand, and whether she could walk to the house where he had real food. The moment he said, food, her stomach growled loud enough to echo off the barn wall. He gave a short, tired smile, not playful, but like a man who understood hunger from cold winters that had taken too much from him. He helped her to her feet. She leaned on him for balance, legs shaking like wet paper. Step by step, they moved toward the ranch house. The porch creaked under their weight. Inside, the place was simple, plain table, iron stove, shelves lined with tins and dried beans. It smelled like coffee and old lumber. A man's home, but a clean and honest one. He sat her in a chair and set a bowl of beans and cornbread in front of her. She stared at it like it was gold. Then she ate so fast he had to gently remind her to breathe. Slowly, color returned to her cheeks. He asked her name. She told him, Lily. She hesitated. She almost told him everything, the roadside place she escaped, the men who thought hunger made her theirs, but the words stayed locked inside her. He repeated her name softly, like committing it to memory. She whispered that she could work if he needed help. Cooking, cleaning, feeding the horses, anything honest. Anything safe. He leaned back, studying her. Not as a man looking at a woman, but as a man weighing fate, wondering why she had crossed his path. Before he could answer, a heavy thud shook the windowpane. Elias, she had learned his name, moved before she could stand. He told her to stay in the kitchen. Then he stepped into the hall, grabbed a lantern, and opened the front door. The late afternoon sun spilled across the yard. And there he was. Hank Crowley. The neighbor every rancher avoided. Big man, red face, mean eyes, and a habit of showing up where he wasn't wanted. He kicked the water trough again, that must have been the sound. Water splashed over his boots. He glared at the house like it had insulted him. Elias stepped off the porch and asked what he wanted. Hank smirked. Said he heard Elias had taken in a stray girl. Said maybe she needed a real man to look after her. His tone was sharp and mocking, the kind that poked and provoked on purpose. Lily hid behind the doorway, barely breathing. Men like Hank had shaped her nightmares. Raised voices meant danger. Always had. Elias stepped closer. His shoulders squared, the posture of a man done being polite. He told Hank to leave the property. Clear words. Strong words. Hank didn't move. Instead, he shoved Elias in the chest. Not hard, but enough to spark something Elias had kept buried for years. Hank swung first, fist catching Elias across the jaw. Pain shot through him. For a moment, he tasted blood and old memories, bar fights, army scraps, the years when he'd lost everything, a wife to winter fever, a son to a war that swallowed boys whole. He wasn't a man who stayed down anymore. Elias stepped in, grabbed Hank's shirt, and slammed him into the dirt. Hank swung wildly. Elias blocked the blow and struck him once in the shoulder, sending him gasping to the ground. Elias stood over him, steady and cold. He told Hank that if he ever set foot on this property again, things wouldn't end with just a shove or a punch. Hank scrambled up, muttered curses, and staggered toward his horse. When Elias turned, Lily was standing in the doorway. Her eyes wide, not with fear, but with shock. No one had ever stood up for her like that. But Hank wasn't the kind to swallow humiliation. And the next time he came, he wouldn't come alone. That night, long after sunset, Hank rode into town, angry and half-drunk. At a dim saloon, he found a man who lived outside the law, Cole Maddox. A tall stranger with a scar down his cheek and dead-tired eyes. Cole listened as Hank spat out the story. The insult. The girl. Elias. Hank claimed he just wanted to scare Elias, but the tone of his voice said otherwise. A bag of coins hit the table. Cole picked it up. Gave a thin smile. And agreed. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Lily swept the kitchen floor. Elias checked the barn doors. When she handed him a lantern, her fingers brushed his. Just a second, but enough for something to shift. Not romance. Not yet. Something softer. A thread of trust. Elias told her to rest. He'd keep watch. But before dawn, the horses snorted and stomped, fear, not hunger. Elias stepped outside. The air was too still. shadows too deep. Then a soft crunch of boots. Cole moved out from behind the barn, revolver at his side. Lily stepped onto the porch, fear trembling through her voice as she called Elias's name. Cole's eyes flicked toward her. A mistake. His hand dropped toward the gun. Elias moved faster than he should have been able to. He swung a fence rail across Cole's wrist. The gunshot went wild, kicking dust into the air. Lily kicked the revolver out of reach and threw a lantern closer to give them light. Elias tackled Cole, fought him blow for blow, and finally pinned him down. One solid punch ended the fight. They hauled Cole to town at sunrise, and when he confessed who hired him, Hank was arrested too. As the sheriff dragged him away, Hank spat that people like Elias and Lily never stayed lucky long. But justice had finally caught him. Back at the ranch, Lily wrapped bandages around Elias's ribs. She asked why he fought so hard for her. He said no one had fought for him when he needed it, and he was done watching good people stand alone. She whispered that maybe life gives a person one good chance to start over. Elias told her that chance is only real if you take it, and that as long as she wanted it, this ranch was her home. Side by side. Not behind him. Not beneath him. Side by side. And if trouble ever returned up that long dirt road, they'd meet it together.